Hey everyone, my name is Sean Cecil from the Oculus Institute, and today we're going to be looking at the fourth school of internal work, which is the Esoteric school. Okay, so most people have heard, almost everybody's heard about psychotherapy. Positive psychology is something that, even if people haven't heard the term, they've certainly dealt with people who operate on those premises. And then people who are in personal development, again, even if they're not aware of the term NLP, they've worked with people who use NLP-based tools because that's most of the personal development industry. But when you get to the esoteric work, that's something most people have never heard of, most people have never worked with, most people have never encountered. There are reasons for this. The esoteric work goes back for a long ways. It's older than any of these other models, except perhaps positive psychology. You've probably had people being delusionally optimistic since the dawn of time. But aside from that, the esoteric work is thousands of years old. That said, it was often persecuted. And when we start talking about what's involved in it, you'll understand why authorities at the time, monarchs and church leaders and all this were not particularly keen on that flowing around, and so it was kept secret for a long time. Nowadays we're in an age where we can freely express and freely discuss things, and so it's starting to become more common. And it is an incredibly powerful set of tools. So the basic premise of the esoteric work, regardless of what school it comes from, whether it comes from a school that's connected to a religion or not connected to a religion, or wherever it comes from, is based on two very, very, very important premises. The first premise is that you are not your thoughts and emotions. Most people think that they are their thoughts and emotions, right? They say, oh, well, I believe this, I feel that, right? Whereas the esoteric perspective requires you to take a step back from that and realize that you are the awareness that observes those thoughts and emotions. So one analogy I like to use is like if you think of a robot, your body is the metal of the robot. Your mind, which includes the thoughts and emotions, is the software of the robot. But you, the real you, are the programmer who programs those thoughts and emotions. And if you look at some of the stuff, if you look at like CBT that we talked about, cognitive behavioral therapy, and the psychotherapy model, right? It kind of starts to have this basic idea of, hey, it's possible to figure out what your triggers are and avoid them. The esoteric perspective is much more than that. The esoteric perspective says, number one, you want to disidentify from believing that you are your mind. And then number two, you want to observe what is going on in the mind without condemnation or justification. So rather than saying, oh, that's bad, oh, that's evil, any of these kind of things, or rather than justifying it, just sit there and observe it, right? And just that really, really clear, honest introspection. And it can come during meditation, it can come through journaling where you're doing deep internal work, it can come through structured methodologies from various schools, produces profound impacts. Now, once you've gone with these two very important premises of disidentification and observation, now, once you really understand what's going on, now you have the ability to start actually reprogramming. So before, as I said, in CBT, they'd say, hey, this friend caused you to drink, so don't hang out with this friend. Now, that may or may not be useful, but the esoteric side is more advanced because it says, hey, why is it that this friend causes you to drink? Let's unwire the triggers so that this outside thing doesn't have an influence on you. And it causes you to build the ability to make free choices rather than trying to control your environment to avoid your triggers getting hit. There's a big difference between trying to not have people push certain buttons versus just disconnecting the buttons that you don't want to have a reaction, right? That's the difference between somebody who's afraid to go somewhere and someone who's, can go there without fear, right? It's a massive step change, and it rests in this idea that the human being has the ability to reprogram themselves once they've disidentified and once they've observed and they know what's going on, right? And the esoteric journey is moving to that place of awareness. Some people might call it the soul, or whatever term you want to use. I don't really care. Some people like the religious overtones, some people don't. Doesn't matter. The point is that there is an aspect of you that is watching the thoughts and emotions, and that aspect has the ability to make changes, right? And that's the esoteric work. And you know, if you look at some of the things that I will do with my clients in the esoteric part of my work, you'll look at things like analyzing why people get into external conflicts, right? And looking at all the triggers that cause that. Also looking at why people end up in internal conflict with themselves because of people pleasing or authority or self-judgment or any of this other kind of stuff. And when I was talking earlier about, you know, authorities not liking the esoteric schools teaching their stuff because people are telling you to question the absolute monarch, or they're telling you to question, you know, the Pope or whatever, right? If you go back to, I don't know, the 1100s or wherever it was, where, you know, the popes were very corrupt in that time, the Borgias and all those kinds of people, right? If you go, wait a minute, the Pope's saying A, but he's doing B, you know, like, then they would just kill you. So, like, that kind of questioning was not encouraged at the time. Another stuff that I'll have people look at is stress. You know, look at the various stresses, and I've got a bunch of tools to dissolve those stresses that operate at a very deep level of how they're structured, but can only be implemented from the perspective of the awareness, right? You can nullify out all these various emotional charges, but it's utterly impossible to do that if you're identified and you think that you are your thoughts and emotions. These tools can only be used from that perspective of awareness. And then finally, you know, I'll work with people on different thought loops and thought patterns, right? And again, that's something where if you think you are your thoughts, you can't see them. You can only see them if you step back to the level of the awareness. And this whole process is something that I call deconditioning. And deconditioning is crucial both for allowing you to live your life in a vastly more efficient, vastly less stressed way, but also to be able to do things like get clear on your actual authentic values, like we talked about in the last video, which, you know, I help people find a career that's truly going to inspire them. And to do that, you have to know what your authentic values are. And to know what your authentic values are, you have to do the deconditioning work. And that's why my process has the success rate that it does. For the clients who've gone through the deconditioning work, gone through the capstone, we have gotten an answer where they say, man, that is something that I would really love to do. And so far, that has been a 100% success rate. I don't know if it's going to be like that going forward. I certainly hope so. I like to think it's a pretty reliable process based on, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of people. But, you know, we'll see. But the reason why it's so effective is because we do that deconditioning work at the outset. And that's the power of the esoteric perspective. Now, just so you know, we're gonna have one last video. We've gone over the 4 schools, but now we're gonna wrap it up and talk about when it's best to use each. Hey everyone, if you found this video valuable, if you found a new perspective that's gonna help you in your career or in your personal development, then I've got one more free gift for you. I've put together a free diagnostic quiz to help you figure out exactly where you are on the path to career freedom and what you need to do next. Just a few short multiple choice questions, and you're gonna get a rating of where you stand in terms of your career fulfillment. You know, how is your job affecting you? How much does it align with who you naturally are? With your financial success, and with your internal alignment, your own sense of inner peace, and how that plays out in your life. Additionally, it will also show you which toolboxes are going to help you achieve higher levels in the ratings that were most challenging for you, as well as what next steps you can take to make sure that you gain those skills and you get the rewards. So if you want to go take that quiz, just go to www.oculusinstitute.com/purposequiz. No lines, no spaces, no dashes, just www.oculusinstitute.com/purposequiz. I'm looking forward to seeing your results. I hope you get a lot out of it, and I'm looking forward to helping you take those next steps.